And we're back at the Cantina here for our fifth very foreign Christmas celebration with which country, Mr. Crypto?
Ireland. I'm dreaming of a Irish Christmas this year.
Now, I forget. I don't know if I asked you. I think I know the answer, but you chose Ireland of, the various countries that we could celebrate. Why did you choose Ireland?
Well, my father-in-law is 100% Irish. My wife's 50% Irish. And I think that we've talked so much about James Joyce, and you've been to Ireland, and we both love Jameson. So I thought it was just one that would be, felt at home. And it was something that we could get behind. Not that I haven't enjoyed it every single year. I love learning about the new things, but sometimes it's nice to just feel a hug when you're reading. And this book kind of felt like a nice hug.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, we'll get to where this one ranks compared to the other four. Of the five, we should probably place this on the scales.
Yeah, let's do that at the end. Yeah.
But maybe we just do kind of I don't know, I've got a couple that I might say a little bit more about, but you want to kind of roll through these and just kind of be hey, this was this one, and just kind of just see where the night takes us.
Yeah, let's start at the beginning, and if we have something to say, we'll talk about, which one, why we liked it, why we didn't like it. If we pass by, it just means that maybe didn't resonate with us. But yeah, let's go everything, and then we can talk about the dead a little bit, but I know we discussed earlier that maybe we'll have a separate video revisiting that since we've already done it once before, and it is a major part of this book.
Yeah, I think it's a third, just shy of a third, and I know when you were selecting it, I'm oh, sweet, we get to read the dead.
Yeah, spoilers, we like that one.
Kind of my favorite collection of all time. All right,
yeah.
Let's start with, I guess, the first one. And what an appropriate start. If we're going to talk about the birth of Christmas, little baby Jesus, right? The Wexford Carol. We got kind of the Three Wise Men story, if you will. What did you think of this one?
It was a poem, and I feel you're going to hear me say that. I think on all the poems, they're poems, and they do what they do. They tell a short little story about Christ and Christmas and how it kind of resonates, and the wise men, all that. It seems the standard, and it's not bad. It's not good. It is to me.
Well, I mean, when we were both younger, we were practicing Catholics, right? And you remember Advent, it was the 4 weeks to prepare you for Christmas, to prepare you for the new year, right? The idea was, I need to get right. The jolliness, the togetherness, the caring for others, that's something I can get behind, right? That is something that we need to still always, I think, be mindful of, is getting right with how should we be. And I think, particularly whether you take it as Christmas or New Year's, doesn't matter to me. I think it's a good time of the year to start saying, how should I be preparing? What are the things I need to be giving? Kind of that sort of thing.
And I think with poems like this, for me, it's a story that I know. As you said, I grew up in the church. I learned all these things. And so it's a simple retelling of a story that I know very well and intimately. If you are younger or you're reading this, to a child on Christmas Eve, that it could be magical because it could be the first time that they're hearing the story of, Jesus in the manger and the wise men and Mary. And that could be something that's pretty awesome. And it's something you could hand down, to a child on Christmas Eve or Christmas Day in church or at home. And so I don't want to, it come across that I don't think these poems are important. It's just something that is, for lack of better words, redundant to me, being semi-versed in Catholicism and Christianity.
Bro, you're a poem hater. Don't hide and hide it.
That's true, but let's move on to the second story. Let's go shopping.
And what's funny is this one's actually from a novel, The Green Road, the shopping for Christmas dinner by Anne Enright. This one was cute, right? This is about, you can't tell me, well, I guess you and your wife don't do presents, so maybe you don't know. But my wife and I will get a little bit of anxiety of like, oh, have we gotten all the right things for everyone? Like the hustle and bustle of running around. And it's almost like those small moments of coming home to your family in the end. This story was a cute little reminder of making sure not to lose sight of the small moments, I thought.
Yeah, it's a cute story. And I think to your point is my family was always big about gifts. And when my wife and I got married, we stole something from her and her sisters that they have a very large family. And, there's 40, 50 people sometimes at Christmas morning with family and friends. And the capitalism of it, they felt like kind of sucked the life out of Christmas. And I might have told this before, but if you're new here, then enjoy me reminiscing that the gift that her and her sisters gave each other was not having to give a gift. And we really like that. And my wife and I, we buy each other stuff at random times, and it feels almost more important because she'll just come home. Spoiler, she lost one of her AirPods. I went and bought one. And so like when she comes home from a trip, it's just going to be sitting there for her. And, it'll be more special than I bought her something for Christmas. So yeah, I mean, I think that the story is good because it resonates with people that we like gift giving. It makes us feel good to give to someone else. And I still do like that feeling. I just don't want to be mandated that I have to do it on this specific day for this specific reason.
So American of you. Don't tell me what to do.
Ain't that the truth?
What's with you two and AirPods? Didn't your wife get you AirPods this year because she like washed and broke yours or something like that?
We've gone through several sets. Yeah, she bought herself some, and me after she washed mine. She bought me a new set, and then she lost her right one. One day she just woke up and she's like, I only have my left AirPod. So I bought her, you can buy just a single one like on this replacement shop that I found online.
Oh, you guys are already in the consumer engine, whether you want to or not.
That's true.
All right, Frank Forrest's mince pie. I don't know why. I feel like I've heard this one before, and I think it might be a little bit more popular. I'm not 100% sure, but I like this one, right? Like this was a nice, I don't think any of these so far I put in my top three. I've got three that I'm going to share with you that are my top three, but I thought this was a cute story about, like the whole dreaming. It's kind of reminds me of like, Home Alone. When Kevin McAllister's like, I wish I lived alone and I never saw you guys again, or It's a Wonderful Life where he wish he never existed, right? It's sometimes those dreams that can kind of flip reality and make us look at life differently, I feel like.
I also like this one because I felt like its placement in the book was very strategic, that it's the first one that is a fantasy story, right? And it has those good life lessons of the magic that can allow one to make better choices or be better or see the good in life. And I think it was very well placed inside of this book. If this had been later, after we've read maybe several of the fantasy or whimsical ones, I might not have hit as hard. But yeah, I thought this was a good solid entry into the book as a whole, only because it's placed early in the book.
Now, the next one, Whimsical Beasts. All of these collections, you're going to have some that you don't resonate with that are boring, some that are kind of duds. This was not my thing. Like I'm like, this whole time when we're locking up this woman, I'm like, is this a metaphor? Like, I just got a puppy. So like, I'm like, is this even a human being at first? Like, surely it's just a pet and they're talking about something cute with no, okay, it's a human being. All right, cool. Like it just, is it really strange?
Yeah, it's crazy story. I was also, I wrote literally in my notes, I actually write in the book my notes. I know it's really probably terrible, but if anybody ever buys mine secondhand, I put, this story's a little crazy. What is this even about? Is it a metaphor or is it literally a person locked up? Because if it is, this is definitely not the Christmas story that I want to read. I wrote that in my notes.
No, well, I think I had a self-defense mechanism too, where I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to read this one at face value. I'm not going to pull the nerdy narrative here. She always says how she likes to read at face value. I'm not going to do that one because that one hurts me. If I read this one at face value, having this woman locked up, good Lord. I'm going to do the metaphor game here. Which I think we're kind of known for.
Please.
Right? Yeah. I'm going to view him as the pessimism and the jadedness, and she's the hope, right? You have two competing forces of pessimism and being jaded versus the hope and optimism. And you have to make a choice between which one you're going to be and which one you side with. And that's kind of how I thought I got through this story, I guess.
And if we took it one step further, other cultures have kind of done that in a way with Santa Claus and like Krampus, where one looks at the good and the good children, and Krampus looks at the naughty children, those on the good list, those on the naughty list. So I can see it there, but man, you really got to look for it in that story. So that one might be at the bottom of the list for the whole book.
Yeah. I think there were some that weren't very interesting to read, but that one I disliked actively. Just maybe because of my own prejudices. All right. The Christmas cuckoo. Am I saying that correctly?
Cuckoo.
I'm gonna say
cuckoo.
Okay. Yeah, it's the cuckoo bird to me. I guess I'm not smart enough to know how it's pronounced, but I will say this: I'm smart enough to know this was my favorite story in the book. I already know the hate's coming, but I thoroughly enjoyed this one. Like, if you were like, hey, Una, let's pick one story here to dissect and do a dedicated video to, obviously The Dead. But if it were saying besides The Dead, because we're already doing that, I would have chosen this one. I love the fairy tale story. I loved how power always tries to control, right? I love that the bird who, is couldn't be caught also represents freedom. The freedom to choose, and the freedom to choose being happy with what you have. I loved it on all the different levels.
Una, I feel like you don't even know me anymore, bro.
Because it's optimistic. It's because it's optimistic. I hate you.
Una, on my notes, I wrote, obviously The Dead is by far the best story, but it's unfair to put this in the collection of Irish stories because The Dead is The Dead. And then if you flip to The Christmas Cuckoo, you can see I put a star because it was my favorite of the whole book, excluding The Dead, because The Dead is not able to be chosen. I also love this story. I thought it was amazing. This is The Wonderful Life. This is, you make the right choices and you're going to prosper. I thought this story was great. It's family oriented. It gives you hope. It gives you meaning. It still has a little bit of the fantasy element to it of, working with the bird. It works in so many different ways, and it works in mysterious ways.
Well, and even like, just to put it down raw, like the desire of material goods. Is it the material good that you want, or is it what you think the material good's going to get you? Right, like the chick, Fairweather, or whatever. Funny names too, by the way, in the story. I got a little mixed up in Spare and Scrub a couple times. I'll put that on the table. But the idea of what does that item get you? Like, is it really that you wanted power, that you wanted recognition, notoriety? Is it really that you wanted freedom from needing things, right? There's a lot to be said about this story that maybe if, we're still rocking this channel in a couple years, maybe we do a dedicated video to this one. Because I really think this is a Christmas story. I wish someone had been like, dude, you want a Christmas story? Check this one out.
Yeah, Scrub and Spare were very interesting characters. The wife, Fairfield, Fair Maiden,
Fairweather?
something like that.
Yeah, something where it's just like, that trifling woman.
Yeah, and very interesting character as well. I really I felt like the story resonated with me because it had that choice of being humble over greed, almost a little bit more like Christmas Carol, where you got to see it happen in two different instances with the brothers. One chose to be humble, and one chose greed. But they both kind of ended up in the same place because of lessons learned. And I thought that was really cool. Yeah, by far the best story of the book, excluding The Dead, which I don't think gets to be counted technically in the book for us.
We're biased. That's fair. All
right, we're biased for The Dead.
Now, and I've also read it so many times. I love Christmas Carol, but I've also heard the Christmas Carol story multiple times every year. It's unfair to kind of compare against it, right? So repetition matters is what I'm saying. Christmas Pudding. Now, this is actually another famous author, Irish author, that I've been wanting to get along with Elizabeth Bowen later on in this book. Very famous author. I would put this one as my third favorite. This is the one with the roaches that were rich, so eating the same pudding as them made them feel special because they weren't as well off financially. And it was the things around the pudding, the laughter, the teasing, the family together that made it special. I loved that. And plus I love food. So for some reason, all of these always have like a food oriented one. This was the food oriented story and I freaking loved it. I know you hate those.
No, I actually like this one as well. Cut the pudding and cut the shite was hilarious. I felt like this was the funniest story of the whole book, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. It's short, it's to the point, and it's a good time. It resonated with me because I could see sitting around with my family, drinking eggnog, having a spiced whatever, and my sister or my brother-in-law, says something funny, and my niece. She's 9 now. She's very quick-witted, like the rest of our family. I could see her throwing out like a zinger out or something. I felt like this story was something a lot of people could relate to, sitting around with their family, after Christmas is done. It's late, you're tired, you're stuffed, you're having that evening cocktail, and, somebody makes some joke, and it makes the world feel right. Like, yeah, this is what I need to recharge.
I'm going to guess you don't have much to say about the poem by Yeats, the Magi by W.B. Yeats.
Yeah, this is a good little poem talking about, spiritualism and the meaning of life. It's very short. I mean, it's what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 10 sentences, basically. It's quaint. I will give it that.
It feels to me like we're actually, except for Whimsical Beast, we're all very positive on all these stories, which is already a better batting average, I feel like, than any of the other books that we've talked about. But for me, I start to fall off a little in the end here. We'll see how it goes. Okay. Candle and Crib by K.F. Purden. At least that's how I'm pronouncing it. This is one that I think is well known. I definitely have heard of this one before. I mean, the symbolism of the candle and the cribs, obviously, are the guiding someone home. The miscommunication is funny. It's entertaining. And I think this deals with a lot of that anxiety that a lot of people have of seeing family members you haven't seen in a while. Do they think the same way about you you think about them, or they are? There's a lot to be related to in this story that I think this could definitely be a lot of people's favorites. It did not make my top 3, though.
Agreed. I liked the story, but I felt like it was just too familiar. Like, you want a little bit of fantasy, you want a little bit of something that makes it feel unrealistic. This one just hit home for me. 2 families coming together. Are they going to connect? Is there going to be drama? And I got to be honest, like, my wife and I, we've started to kind of take a stance that, we want to spend time together. We sometimes don't get to celebrate things we want to celebrate because there's an obligation. And I felt like the story was the epitome of an obligation of families coming together. You have to do this. And kind of like I said with the presents thing, like, that doesn't make it fun. That doesn't make it enjoyable. I want to do it because I want to do it, not because I have to do it. And that's kind of what like this story felt for me. So yeah, I was kind of meh on this one. It's not a bad story. I definitely can see there's some meat to the bones there, but not something that resonated like the others did.
I also imagine, where are you in life, right? Like if I were more of a newlywed going to like the family side, like I can imagine I would relate more to it then than I do now after having been married for 15 years, Yeah,
exactly. I think it's a story that is relatable, and depending on where you're in life, you might be like, yeah, or like us, you're like, meh.
Wait, I forget. Did I ask you earlier? So I have a top 3. Do you have a top 3 that you're rolling through with this?
Sort of. I mean, again, excluding the dead. Yeah, I mean.
Okay, so we've revealed we've revealed the Christmas Cuckoo, right? Have we revealed any of the other tops? Like, was it Christmas Pudding? Was that in the top list for you?
Probably number 3 or 4. Yeah.
Okay. So that was one of 3
funny
for me.
It was
1 of 3 for me.
Yeah. It was the funniest story of the book. So yeah, probably 3 or 4.
Okay. Well, spoiler alert. Here comes my second one. So those are my top 3. Right. My second one was The Troubles at Christmas by Bernard McLaverty. This is the story of I liked like cows buying a present. Like, it felt very felt very approachable at first. And then, bro, when he meets Crilly and there's like that book with like the secret inside of it, and it's Middlemarch, and all of a sudden you find out he's an ex-gang member, or at least for me. Maybe there were signs earlier and I totally was just like in a Christmas mood and I overlooked it. I don't know. But it hit me with like that left punch, and then I was like just caught up in it. Like it was really exciting, like him trying to leave, trying to start new beginnings, kind of what New Year/Christmas is all about, like we talked about earlier in this video. So for me, I was in emotionally, and then also the fact that this was written in 1983. I thought that was kind of interesting. It felt like it could be actually older, just with the kneecapping and stuff like that.
If I hadn't been in a cabin in the woods where nobody knew I was, I could have swore you were spying on me, stealing my list, and stealing my notes, because this also would be my number 2.
It was funny. It was interesting. It was engaging. And it was definitely what's the right word? Like a grimier spin on a Christmas story? Like, how would you describe it?
Guilt-ridden is one of the words I put. And so I almost put this as number 1. It was a close second to number 1. Mm-hmm. And so I looked a little bit up about this story. Did you know it's actually an excerpt?
Oh.
Yeah. It's an excerpt from the novel Cal.
I think there's 2. Yeah, you're right. There's like 2 stories in here, and this is one of them. This would be one where I don't know where this is in the book.
Yeah.
Because the opening, it feels like it could be an opening chapter, doesn't it? Like the drama's right there.
I think this is the end of the book.
You think it is
the last chapter? I think it is.
Interesting.
Yeah, I mean, think of that last ending sentence. The next morning, Christmas Eve, all of as he expected it, the police arrived to arrest him, and he stood in a dead man's wise front listening to the charge, grateful that someone was at least going to beat him within an inch of his life.
But dude, but then you're in, right? So now it doesn't continue from here. Now it's a flashback. Now you go back in time to figure out what led to this. What was the background? And I'm like, I'm in. So like this would definitely be, maybe we do the last Dickens Christmas novella, and maybe we hit, the Christmas Cuckoo and the Troubles at Christmas, like whatever the book is, Cal, I think you said. Maybe we hit the book as a whole. Like that would be a fun Christmas time thing to do.
Yeah, and we've done that before where we've learned that, wow, this is an excerpt of an amazing novel and dived into it. I would definitely be down for that. So yeah, this was a good one. It felt like it gave you feelings, right? Mm-hmm. It taught you about being punished and the naughty list and redemption. It had everything that you want a Christmas story to have. And maybe I'm talking myself into putting it at number 1. I don't know. If we revisit this because we do the novel Cal, it could become my number 1 of this collection. Mm-hmm. It could. Mm-hmm. I'm throwing that out there now.
So maybe we put this as an audiobook or something like that for us to check out next Christmas, right? Like,
love it.
Like we love just sitting here hanging out. Like that's why we do this channel, is just to hang out and talk about, books and stuff. But maybe this would be one to kind of do the Christmas spirit next year, you think?
I'm game.
Okay.
Do it.
I think we just made a plan right here live on this video here. Let's move on to Men and Women by Claire Keegan. This is a story told by a very intelligent girl, right? She's the last to... She tells us she's the last to believe, but she's kind of already put it together, I feel like, with the rapping. She says she puts it together later, but I don't know. She's a smart girl, right? And she kind of knows what's going on with her dad, gallivanting around with the chicks and the mom. I had a hard time getting into it. Like all the elements are there, but something about it just didn't click with me, but I wanted to like it.
Yeah, but it's because you read the story as just called Men.
Okay. All right. Hit me.
I don't know. It's a very feminist story. I don't think that you and I are the intended audience. I think that it is about power. I think it's about learning one's place in the world, relationships, overcoming hardship. I think it's the perception of men and women and our roles in society, our roles in family, how we judge each other on those roles. I don't think you and I are meant to maybe get a lot out of this story, and that's okay. I think that this is about how a lady sees herself inside of her own family, coming to terms with that, and then moving forward because her dad's not a good guy. And that's probably a struggle for a lot of people to come to terms with, myself personally, of like, my dad's not a good person. How do I reconcile with that?
Yeah.
That's tough.
Right. Well, past trauma is tough, right? And the story has a lot of past trauma and like the familiar, the family, how those two clash. I wanted to like it. I really did, but maybe it's not for me. Maybe I just can't relate to those specific traumas. I don't know.
Oh, lucky for you. It's not a bad story. It's just one that obviously is not going to resonate with a lot of people.
No, I don't. I'm not making an argument that any of these are bad yet.
Except for Whimsical Beasts.
That one I did not care for, but I don't think I'm going to make that argument. I don't think it's written poorly. I just think it's subject matter that it makes me angry. I don't like it. I don't resonate with it, and it doesn't move me forward in my life. So, now the Tommy Crayons by Elizabeth Bowen. I might be pronouncing her name wrong. This is one of the more famous Irish authors. There's a couple in this, obviously, a lot of them in this book, obviously. But this is one that I was expecting to get more out of, like this whole distant connections. Tommy, if you remember when we read, I can't remember which James Joyce story it is from Dubliners, but like they talk about this woman and they said she's a large, imposing woman. I always just laugh when I hear that line. I thought of that line when they described Tommy Crayons, essentially.
I'm going to give you 2 words for this story, and it's a movie title, and it's all I could think of the entire story. Love Actually.
I haven't seen that movie.
Wow, we're going to get a lot of hate on that.
I know.
That's one of like the most famous Christmas movies ever, and it's all about connections of relationships, and that's all I could think about reading this story was, wow, this is like the written version of Love Actually. And
so you're saying I need to go see that movie is what you're saying?
No, because I'm going to get a lot of hate. I don't care for that movie. It's a great movie. It just, there's so many other Christmas movies that I'm going to invest my time in. Have we done a Christmas ranking movies? Did we do that?
I don't know. What's your favorite? What's number 1?
No. We're making a video on that. We're doing a video on that.
Okay. I'd be down for that. That'd actually be pretty fun.
Yeah,
maybe we should do that next week. Don't tease the audience. Are we doing that next week or not?
Yes.
Okay.
That's another thing live.
All right, there you go. Put that list together. We'll do a live Christmas ranking, and maybe I have to go watch Love Actually before next week then to remedy that.
Better. Yeah, we got to agree on that. We've seen the movies first.
Yeah. All right, we'll get that going. Another Christmas by William Trevor. Years gone by, many Christmas memories, right?
This was a snooze fest.
Absolute snooze. Yeah. Absolute snooze fest, 100%. No, I apparently did break into your house and steal your notes because I'm not making the argument that it's bad. I'm really not making the argument I think that any of these are particularly bad. I just didn't enjoy it. Like you said, falling asleep.
It's a little political, and I understand the point he was trying to make. It's all about the politics of the time period in Ireland versus England. It was just a little slow. It was a little dense in the beginning, and then it kind of got interesting, but I wasn't invested by that point, and I just wanted to finish the story. I just wanted to get and see what the next story in the book was.
When did this one come out? Was it 92? It says this came out in 92.
Yeah, so like all the stuff with Ireland was happening then, like the late 80s, early 90s, right?
I actually didn't pick up on that, but maybe that's because I turned my brain off because I'm a terrible person.
Yeah, it just felt like it was reminiscing of the past of, what Ireland was going through and the IRA and all the craziness that was taking place, in the 80s and 90s. And it was hard to get into. Once the history kind of surfaced in the story, I was just flipping pages at that point going, all right, I'm done with this one. So maybe the placement in the book is unfair. Maybe I should take another go at it. We should take another go at it at some point in time.
Did you do this like in a couple sittings, or did you do like a little bit of story each day, or how did you experience this?
I read most of it in like one day. Well, I guess across 2 days of Thanksgiving. My wife and I were up in a cabin, and I took my book and blasted through it. So yeah, it was just nice.
Okay, so it could have been a little bit of Christmas fatigue, if you will.
I guess, yeah. Reading fatigue, I guess, maybe.
Yeah. All right, Christmas Eve, this was the poem, right? Last poem before we hit the dead.
Yeah, so again, it's a poem, but I encourage you, because I did this as well. I was very interested in the name, and I'm not going to say it because I'm not going to insult the lady and butcher it. Go onto YouTube. You're on YouTube. When you're done watching our video, go search for this, The Christmas Eve by, I'm guessing the T is silent.
The name that you shall not pronounce.
Yeah, so her last name is Tsaoi. Search for her. She reads it in, I think, Celtic or Gaelic or whatever it is, in the native language. And it is so cool.
Is it in Irish?
I get, but like Irish from like 1,000 years ago, like real Irish, not just like with a cool Irish accent. Like it's right, you can't understand the words.
Right. So she speaks in actual Irish, which is, you know, kind of like there's signs when you travel around the country that a lot of times there's English and Irish like translations directly there.
Yeah, well, I guess that's my ignorance as an American. I didn't realize like ancient Irish is very distinct, and it's very sing-song when she reads it in that language, and it's beautiful. You don't understand what she's saying, but it still resonates with you, and I enjoyed it.
So who read it? Was it the translator that reads it?
No. Marie Tosai or whatever.
Okay. Well, yeah. I guess that would make sense why it says translated, because it would have been translated from Irish. Well, I'm presuming. I don't know. Okay.
Yeah, but go listen to it in the native language, read by the author. I thought it was very, very magical, and I enjoyed it. I didn't understand anything she was saying, but I read along, and I really liked it. I thought it was nice.
I feel like you had a lot more to say about the poems than you insinuated that you were going to say about the poems.
All right, and that's the end of the book. Nothing else, really worth talking about.
Oh, man. I don't really know how much to say about the dead here, because I know we're about to record next week a video dedicated to the dead. I'm not going to tell you how to do your talk, but I really... Because, when you look at these, you look at them in different ways. When we first approached this, it was your first read-through of Dubliners. I'd read this one multiple times, and it was me skipping to it as I was rereading Dubliners. Now we're reading it in the context of Christmas, but I specifically just have this desire to really like focus on the last two paragraphs. I'm not saying you need to, but I wanted to almost do like a reading of the last two paragraphs, like so it's fresh in everyone's mind, and then maybe kind of really dive into that. And we can obviously branch off and go broader, but I would like, for some reason, that's just on my agenda.
Yeah, let's start there. That sounds great. There's no wrong way to read the story or interpret it to enjoy it. Like all of Dubliners, read it front to back to front, start in the middle. That's the unique thing about that collection of stories. According to us, the greatest collection of short stories ever. Mm-hmm. Yep. I don't mind starting there. I do want to go look at it with a fresh pair of eyes. And even read it again, even though I read it a couple of weeks ago. I'm going to go through it again because it's so good. And really kind of try to hone in and resonate with the Christmas aspect of it and see what little nuggets we can glean out.
Okay, well,
I think it'll be worth it.
And that's a lot of us talk, right? So someone watching it might not have read Dubliners right now. Well, like I feel like we should rephrase that, because it's such an amazing story. And I realize someone that read it might be bored. Like I'm not here to convince you that it's better for you, right? Like we're just relaying our experience with it. But I would say, okay, let me ask it as a question. You have now read all of Dubliners as opposed to before you had not. You understand a little bit more about James Joyce. We're in the middle of reading Ulysses. You've read A Portrait of the Artist. None of that I don't think you had done the first time you read The Dead. Ergo,
that is correct.
I presume you know more about James Joyce. Ergo, I presume you know more about his writing style. Ergo, I presume you know a lot more about his prejudices, his desires, his fears, his hopes for Ireland even. And his way of telling that story through hypermodern events, characters, places, and stuff like that. When you reread this now,
goosebumps.
It's just I love the story.
I just got goosebumps.
So now that you've reread it, right? How did it land upon you differently? Did it hit harder? Did you see more? Like, what was that experience now after this? I mean, we're on year 5 of YouTube, if not longer. And every single year we're doing something related to James Joyce. How did this one hit now?
It's easier to see it holistically because before we were really chopping up Dubliners. We were going through it in pieces over a long period of time. Now that I've read the entirety of it, I know Joyce, or I don't know Joyce. I'm familiar with Joyce. And I've read The Dead twice now. And I went back and even watched, I went back and watched our video too. I just feel like I have more of an appreciation for life. I have an appreciation for how people perceive life. And with this story in particular, how you can view life positive or negative. And I know that we joke around sometimes that, you're the optimist and I'm forever the pessimist. But I think this story can really resonate with anybody. And I know that if you haven't read all the rest, maybe it won't click with you like it has with me. But at least maybe start there, and it will allow you to start on that journey. And that journey for me has been one of an awakening, so to speak, of that pessimism can be a burden sometimes, but also allow me to be optimistic in my change. Yeah, I think that's a good word.
I think pessimism is important. I think it challenges us. I think pessimism is needed in order for us to stave off some of the injuries that we could experience. It's a conservative way, perhaps sometimes, of approaching things, which I think is needed. So I don't. Even though we do joke about it, I don't think it's a bad thing, right? Like I think pessimism gets a bad rap, right?
I think Joyce would be on my side and not yours.
Yeah, I agree with everything you said there. It's just a masterpiece of literature, hence why we want to do something special for it. Now, with that said, let's come back to what I promised at the beginning of this video. Where are you ranking this one compared to a very Russian Christmas, a very French Christmas, a very German Christmas, and a very Italian Christmas? Where are you going to slot it and why?
I'm over here looking at the books. They're right here. I almost want to hear your...
I'll tell you. I'll go first.
Yeah. What do you think?
We don't have a tier ranking of them because, it's also like you started with one. We never knew we'd be doing this hanging out as much as we have here.
Yeah.
I mean, who knew? But to your point about growing so much, like this channel has been instrumental in pushing, I think, ourselves into talks and reimagining perspective. I think that this has been a very valuable when you look at who we were. Even if you look at the old videos, you're like, I hate myself from 5 years ago, right?
Indeed.
So tier ranking is difficult, particularly I'm tier ranking a very different person myself today than I was 5 years ago. And the first one we did was Russian. And I still rank that very high because it's got some of the masterpieces of Russian literature that I love. And I've done a ton of Russian reading that I shouldn't say ton. That's kind of unfair. For myself, it has consumed most of my reading is Russian literature from my 20s when I was a very different man. But this one, to me, unfortunately, resonates more with what I view Christmas is.
Yeah.
A lot of these are, like you talked about with Krampus, right? Like the whole German thing about a figure that punishes, kidnaps, and tortures children if they're bad, right? Like very different than what I think about when it comes to Christmas. And I'm glad we push ourselves to look at it. But Ireland, unfortunately, is closer, I think, to how I view Christmas morality, Christmas joy. And as a result, I'm putting this one probably at the top.
See, that's what I didn't want the stereotypical answer of, I don't know if it's because it's fresh in my mind and the other one is 5 years ago, but I also want to put it at number one, maybe number two, maybe, I don't know. Yeah, it's just, like you said, it resonates with me. My idea of Christmas and that time of year, it's magic, it's rebirth, it's everything, is more in this book than those books to me. And that's not to say that those are bad books, not to say that they don't have amazing stories, not to say they don't have value. I'm just closer to this one. And I'm very much okay with my personal bias of how it's closer to what I have lived as a 45-year-old man in America living through the 80s, 90s, etc. I had fun. And sometimes when we were at the end of those books in the past, offline, I'd be like, yeah, those were great stories. I'm glad we did them. We did them for the channel, but I didn't have fun. And that's what Christmas is about, right? I literally have my sign up there that says joy. I enjoyed reading this book. I enjoyed reading these stories, and I had a blast talking about them tonight.
Yeah, it's kind of like value versus joy can be two very different things, right? And maybe the way I view a lot of like the very Russian and Russian literature in general is the value might be higher, but the joy ain't necessarily the same. Like, I enjoy reading it, but the joy it brings to me is not the same as what I'm used to. So, yeah. Okay, so next year or the year after, we need to do Cal, the novel, and we need to do a dedicated version of The Christmas Cuckoo is what we're saying.
And we have to pick another very Christmas.
Yeah, we got a couple. We got like Scandinavian, Mexican, and Indian books are out, I think. I can't remember if there's any more Christmas
I think there's only 8
central ones.
Yeah. Well, hit that subscribe button so you'll never miss a video and you'll be able to pay attention to what we do next year.
All right. Thank you for spending time with us today. My name's been Una. Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year to you and your family. And I hope you know, whether you're looking at new beginnings, whether you're looking on the past life, the kind of the Christmas Carol story, of present, past, future, right? Like wherever you are in that journey, I hope you find joy. So thank you for spending time with us. Peace.
Happy holidays.